Good to have you with us here on Al Jazeera, reminding you of the top stories this hour. After more than 25 years in power, Uganda's President, Yoweri Museveni, has been elected to a new 5-year term. He got 68% of the vote. His main rival, Kizza Besigye, just 26%. The opposition says the election was rigged. In Libya, witnesses claim that thousands of people are gathering in a city outside the capital, Tripoli, calling for political reform. People in Benghazi say shots are being fired and that the police academy has been set on fire. There are protesters in Bahrain still camped out at the Pearl Roundabout in the capital of Manama. Demonstrators want political reform as pressure increases on the ruling monarchy to begin talks with opposition figures. Well, within the last hour, the US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, has condemned the violence in Bahrain and urged the government there to embrace reform.
We've been very clear from the beginning that we do not want to see any violence. We deplore it. We think it is absolutely unacceptable. We very much want to see the human rights of the people protected, including right to assemble, right to express themselves, and we want to see reform. And so Bahrain had started on some reform, and we want to see them get back to that as quickly as possible.
Well, there's going to be a lot of people watching in Saudi Arabia what's been happening through the Middle East and the Horn of Africa. The country is less vulnerable to pro-reformist movements because of its vast oil wealth and the popularity of the king. But its rulers have reportedly been shaken by what's been going on in neighbouring countries. On the southern border, Saudi straddles Yemen, where pro-reformist protests have been underway for more than a week. And then there's Jordan and the small Gulf nation of Kuwait up above, where anti-government protests have started. And then Bahrain, almost so small you can hardly see it on their map. It is small, but it's important in terms of Saudi Arabia. And there is, in fact, a causeway linking the two. Let's talk to Hussein Shabokshi, a journalist with Al-Arshaq Al-Awsat newspaper, joining us from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Would it be fair to say that the ruling family in Saudi is rather worried by what's going on?
No, it would not be fair to say. It would be more accurate to say that Saudi Arabia is concerned to see these developments in neighboring countries. Mind you, each case is different, but it's very much alarming. I mean, the case of Yemen, for instance, is a mix of many issues that are the signs of a failed state. Yemen has been a clear case of a failed state. Ali Abdullah Saleh has been a disappointment to his people and obviously to his neighbors as well. He had all the chances to transform Yemen into a promising developing nation. Instead, people chose to be in alliance with the tribe and with the sect above the country and the nation itself, and that's a very sad state.
Is Saudi Arabia concerned, as you put it, because of what might happen in Saudi, or simply concerned in a sort of neighbourly sort of way?
First of all, in a neighbourly sort of way, because these turmoil events could translate into a humanitarian crisis, into a political crisis, into a security crisis, into an ice ball that could develop, a snowball that could develop out of hand, as is in the case of Iraq. For instance, the Saudis obviously have seen this before and they don't want a repeat scenario.
But is it not fair? A lot of commentators suggesting that the Saudi royal family believed itself to be as impregnable as it thought Hosni Mubarak was. And some of the same conditions exist in Saudi Arabia. There's vast differences between the wealth of the ruling elite and the job opportunities that they have. And they were very surprised to see Mubarak go. Maybe the same concerns them.
Well, that is slightly a different comparison. I do believe that we do have a lot of challenges in Saudi Arabia. Unemployment is a challenge. Youth participation in society is a challenge, obviously. There are challenges that have been discussed in the open and they are put on the table. We still believe that the Shura Council, the ministries, the various concerned ministries have a lot of work on their hand to do to meet and cross the bridge between the demands and the requirements of the people and the plans of the government. But I think there is an open dialogue. There is a bit of better transparency than it used to be in the past. Mubarak's case is completely different. There are completely a different set of issues that would make the comparison a little bit difficult.
Thank you very much indeed. Good to have you on the programme once again, Mr. Shabokshi.
Good to see you. Thank you very much for having me.
In Venezuela, a group of students continuing a 2-week-long hunger strike, demanding an inquiry into human rights abuses there. They accuse the government of using judges and prosecutors for dirty tricks against the political rivals of President Chavez. The US is backing the students' demands. Venezuela's foreign minister is telling the US it shouldn't interfere. Well, President Chavez is having to readjust a little bit to a new political reality. For the first time in a very long time, the opposition has some power, at least, to stop his often controversial proposals. Craig Mauro reports from the capital, Caracas.
Enthusiastic supporters accompany Hugo Chavez into what is unfamiliar territory for the Venezuelan president. This is the opening session of the National Assembly, Venezuela's legislature. For the first time in years, an opposition coalition has enough seats to block government legislation. Unusually for Venezuelan politics, there have been few fireworks so far, as committees begin hammering out the year's agenda.
People don't want the National Assembly to turn into a polarized political space. They want it to be a lawmaking institution for issues like housing, jobs and security. The whole country voted so that we work to solve their problems.
Chavez's 12-year rule has deeply polarized Venezuelans. The president maintains a large, though slightly weakened base of supporters, especially among the poor. In December, the outgoing assembly, controlled by Chavez's Socialist Party, pushed through an 11th-hour decree that gave the president emergency powers for 18 months. That enables him to bypass the new legislature on several key issues. The opposition called it a ploy to weaken the new assembly that took office in January. But Chavez says he needs the powers to deal with unprecedented floods and rains that struck last year.
We've seen a petty attitude among some opposition members who want to deny the rights of the people and overrule the rights of the previous assembly.
Flores was the president of the last assembly, which passed a slew of laws to deepen what the president calls a 21st century socialist revolution. Chavez began the year with a somewhat conciliatory tone. He refused to sign a controversial university law that had angered the opposition, and he even suggested that he might give up those decree powers. However, since then, he has backtracked, saying he may even seek to get the powers expanded. As Chavez and the opposition adjust to Venezuela's new political reality, the streets of Caracas, so often the scene of mass protests in recent years, seem calm for the time being. If recent history is any judge, however, it is probably just a matter of time before that changes. Craig Mauro, AlJazeera, Caracas.
Long way away from there, Australia. It's a country which likes to claim it's a multicultural society, but there's a big debate at the moment over the integration of